like to welcome you to Boy Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to Boy Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Evolve Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
Hello, Boy Meets Wellness community. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Today's episode is a part of our special edition, which is called the Speaker's Room Live. These are weekly live sessions that I've been doing with entrepreneurs in my industry. Our guest for today's episode is Ryan Diaz. Ryan and I are in the same group coaching program that teaches us to build seven-figure online businesses. Ryan is the founder of Podcast Domination and author of How to Get Your First 100,000 Downloads in 100 Days. Ryan has launched and consulted for 50 podcasts and then has helped his clients generate over 5.5 million downloads for some of the most well-known entrepreneurs and personal brands online. From NFL athletes, Olympic medalists, nine-figure entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, and many more thought leaders across a dozen and more industries. Before jumping into our interview with Ryan, I want to share the Black Business of the Week with you. The Black Business of the Week is Good As Can Be Low Sodium Seasoning. This company is owned by the guest of our last episode, Rhonda Kennedy. I want to thank Rhonda for sending me over both of those amazing seasonings. My favorite is the garlic jalapeno. We put it on some salmon the other night, y'all, and it was super delicious. We will leave the link in the show notes, but simply go follow Good As Can Be on Instagram and get you some. Our wellness tip of the week is to ask for help. Many of you have dreams of starting your own business, buying a house, or losing weight. There are people who have done this in your life. Don't forget about the amazing network that you have around you. In fact, don't forget about the amazing network you have by listening to this podcast. Ask the experts in your life for support in building your dream because you are worth it and it's worth going after. This episode is brought to you by Mar Media Productions. Mar Media is a media production company that produces, publishes, and uplifts the stories, arts, and journey of queer and trans people of color and the people who make our lives incredible. Now for our interview with Ryan Diaz. Hello world. Welcome to the Speaker's Room Live, a special edition. I'm super excited about this interview with Ryan today. But before we jump in, I just want you all to know that we are here in this space out of a space of service, right? Here to give you some tips on how to dominate the podcast world, but how to just live an incredible life. So I'm Evolve Benton, the Speaking for Profit coach. Pumped to be here today because I get to show up and speak, right? Which is something that I love to do. And I'm actually making money while I do it because I'm making money right now, right? Money is coming in and I'm calling that in as my abundance. So if you're listening now, just put hashtag live into the comments. And if you're listening in the near future, put hashtag replay. Ryan, welcome to the space. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
I am pumped to be here. I'll tell you what, that countdown timer, I've done a ton of interviews before. That had some pressure to you. I love it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is interesting. I got to get one of these. So
right, get yourself pumped up, get your heart pumped up. Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So tell our folks, who are you? Where are you from? Right, and what do you enjoy about podcasting? Because that's what you do in the world, right?
Yeah, that's I'll tell you what, when I was in college, it wasn't what I was doing. It was completely at a different space. So to give you guys a long and short story, I was a fitness trainer, health and fitness trainer. And coming up out of college, I was an athlete all my life, played football and ran track and loved it. So I wasn't really interested in podcasting, media, growing an audience, all the stuff we talk about now, monetizing. It literally podcasting kind of fell into my lap out of a way to build my online training business, mm-hmm. which is literally, so I was doing it. I started my first podcast 2016, bought an $11 course, taught myself how to do it, made a ton of mistakes in doing it and failed. my first podcast was horrible and it failed miserably. And I realized that, if I wanted to do this, most people who jump into podcasting realize it's a lot of work. It can be unprofitable for a lot of people if they don't do it right. And it's a lot of like hustle behind the scenes just to show up and do what we're doing right now. Like, this is the fun part, of all like what we get to do. But there's a lot of stuff. If you want to put a quality show out, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So I realized that, and that kind of like pushed me away because like I didn't want to do all the other extra work. So I knew if podcasting was going to be my thing and a way to get customers for this online business I was growing, I needed it to be fun, I needed it to be easy, and I needed it to be profitable. Those three had to check those three boxes. You know what I mean? So, I realized I had to simplify. So podcasting for me was amazing, but I realized like it could be really a cumbersome thing if you didn't have it set up properly. So all that to say, I started another podcast that was decently successful. And that was because I made it easy, I made it fun, and I talked about stuff that I loved. And that after a little bit of time, that led me into making money with it, closing clients on the back end with it, selling affiliate products through that podcast, and ultimately learning how to like recreate that process and help others do the same.
Nice. So Louise, some of our folks who are listening, right? You are speaking language that people don't even know, right? Like you're talking about monetization style, right? Coming from passion and then figuring out a way to make money. Can you tell us a little bit about like what is affiliate marketing? What are some of those terms that you just utilized? Because I always want folks to be aware, right? I
love that. You're a good host for doing that too, Evolve. That's a great thing. So affiliate marketing is basically when I'll tell you how I did it in the podcasting space. So say I would have a guest on who had a product that aligned with my audience, meaning it could help my audience. And I would talk about that, talk to that person, interview them, and then they would give me a link, or I'd create a link for myself that they would supply. And the person, I would basically promote that product to that guest had. And as a promoter for that product, I would make a commission. So I'd make, 5, 10, 20, 30% of the sale if my audience bought that product. Nice. So affiliate marketing was a way for me early on when I had my podcast, one of my first ones, to essentially make a little bit of money on the side without having to build a product, market a product, sell a product. I just had to kind of be the guide and show my audience this amazing person who had this great product. And then I'd make a percentage of the sale, which is when you're getting started online, I think it's something that's highly overlooked. And that could be a very easy way to generating some traction for yourself. So what were some of the other words I use in there that we could totally break down? I just want to make sure
I think affiliate marketing was probably one of the main ones, just because I think that, so many folks want to know about like, how do they monetize? I know many people who have podcasts, but they don't make any money from them. And a lot of folks don't want to do sponsorship, right? Because sometimes when you get a sponsor, they control the content that you produce, right? So there's a way that you give away some of your authority, right? I like to say, but with affiliate marketing, people are already putting the homies on, right? People are already probably mentioning their friends' stuff in the show. This is a great lane for people to understand. So I just wanted you to like really grasp that for folks so that folks could know that there's like an easy way to do that without giving away the way that you want to do your show.
Oh yeah, because you're right. Like if you're getting into the sponsor game, it's tough because you have to listen to what they say now. You have to adhere to what's in the contract, or else guess what? You're not going to get paid to podcast anymore. So it's usually a route I don't recommend for most people. But yeah. So let's talk about your joy spot, right? Because you lit up, right? When you talked about, you made a show that actually was like centered, right, in things that you enjoy. So what do you enjoy? What brings you joy? And what do you talk about on your show? Great question. So I like to talk about personally how to grow. I'm really fascinated at growing things. I'm a marketer by nature. Like I'm interested at growing, and whether it's plants or followings or bank accounts, so as a kid early on, I was really interested in growing. So as a marketer by nature, I love talking about how to grow things. In this context is podcasts. My show is all about growing podcasts, growing your email list using podcasts, growing your social following using podcasts, essentially using the show as a way to further your goals, or to get you to your goals in business, right? Nobody starts a podcast just because they want to start a podcast. Like yes, there's some hobbyists out there, but if we're people who are, doing it for more of like a business tool or an asset, then most people want to see a tangible result, right? You can have fun, totally. Like you should have fun with everything you put out in your show, but that's not the only piece to it. Like there's definitely a piece of people wanting to see growth and monetization through that. So
I really appreciate that part about utilizing the podcast for growth, because I think that sometimes people think that the podcast is going to be the thing that grows things, right? And it's almost like the other way around, right? I love my podcast because it connects people to my other brands, right?
Right.
And it consistently brings people into my life. It's also a space where if I have anything coming up, I can go blast it to a community that will be able to hear it. So let's talk a little bit about like the way that you're supporting some of like your clients with building and what does success look like for people when it comes to podcasting, right? Because I know for some people it's listenership, right? For some people it's money. For some people it's like, ooh, so-and-so that's famous listened to my podcast. So how do we measure success in this particular field?
That's a great question. It always comes down to what's the goal of the business, or what's your goal? Like it's one of the first questions we ask of all when people work with us. It's like, okay, like what do you want to get out of this podcast? Are we using it as a way for you to connect with awesome influencers to build your brand, like your name in the space? Are we using it as a tool to potentially bring in more customers and reach a new market? Are we using it as a way? Gosh, I mean, there's so many things you could do here. So it always comes back to the goal of the business and the person. Most people, I'll generalize here a little bit, want to use it to acquire more customers and to build their reach. Essentially, build the amount of people that they touch or that they are able to impact, however you want to, phrase it. So a couple, we can totally go into like specific metrics if you want. For me, there's always a handful, but I don't know how granular you want to go.
Yeah, let's go into it, because I think, as a podcaster myself, I'm constantly trying to measure. And I know that if we don't measure, we can't get to success. So I would love to hear some of those metrics. Yeah.
So basically we've basically created out a custom dashboard, but I'll name off some of the key points inside of that dashboard that are really important, at least if you're looking at it to grow your audience and to potentially make money down the road. So one of the key ones we look at is downloads per month, right? So downloads per month and also downloads per episode. I'll dive into each of those differently. So downloads per month is like, hey, in the month of February, how many downloads did I get in total for all of my episodes? That's an easy one to measure. And that's something that will go up and down depending on your industry and depending on like what kind of podcast. Like for example, January, great month for health and fitness podcasters because everybody's got their goals. Everybody's back in the gym and they want to learn what's the best thing for losing weight, building muscle. And then if you look at like December, it's a horrible month for a lot of those podcasts. So it's a bit cyclical because everyone's eating, holiday food. I know I was. So that's the first one. Downloads per month. The second one, I'd say, if you want to look at measuring success and how see if my podcast is growing, is downloads per episode. So if you look at like on average, if a show gets 100 downloads a month, and then a couple of months down the road, you're starting to see on average that each episode is now getting 120, you've grown the show. That means you can't guarantee this, but you probably have more subscribers. You probably gained a few people who are regularly listening to that show, and the vice versa too, right? If you have less people listening now than you did a few months ago, there's probably some people who unsubscribed or have left and just are not listening anymore. So yeah, those are two key metrics. A couple of less tangible ones, I would say, is just feedback from your audience. Like on your sales calls, are you hearing people say, "Oh, I listened to that episode and it completely it took me back, man. I had to get on this call with you." That's a good indicator that it's working, right? So looking at your sales calls, looking at how many are you getting any emails from just random thank you emails from people that you didn't even know existed from the podcast. And when I started off a couple of 2016, I started to get a few of those, and that's okay, now the numbers may not be moving as fast as I want them to move, but I'm getting thank you emails randomly from people, and that's a great thing. So those are kind of four key ones. in terms of, for me, if I'm looking at it from like a business owner, which I know like a lot of people in your community, they're speakers. They want to see this, it's speaking for profit. Like we're not here,
Exactly.
we probably love what we do and what we talk about, but there's also other side to that. So, some measurable ones for you just to think about right there would be those 4.
I love that. I love that idea of really looking at the episodes as well. You normally look at the monthly downloads. But I haven't investigated the episodes. But one thing that I did do, Louise, which I was very interested in, is I took some time away, right, to not put out new episodes, just to see, right, like, will I still have listenership? And I did. Actually, I had more, which I was surprised at, but I was actually putting out more content in other places. And I think that people were then going to the podcast. So it works in that way as well. So let's talk a little bit about like you in particular as like a coach, right? Like, because I know that that's what you do. You coach, you support people. How do you support people with preparing their mindset for podcasting, right? Because I think that so many people, especially me as someone who supports people with speaking, people get really nervous when you put a microphone in front of them, right? Like, it's like you can have a conversation on the phone, but as soon as that microphone comes out, people just clamps up. So what are some tips that you give people around their mindset to build their confidence to be able to step into podcasting?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I know I had a lot of head trash, and you naturally you will when you put yourself out there, because now you're making yourself vulnerable. You're making yourself open to the world for people to say, I don't like you. I do like you. I think you're stupid. I think you're dumb. I think you're full of crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's tons of things that could happen. So a couple things I tell them, especially like a lot of clients, like we have like agency clients that we do everything for, and we have coaching clients. For both camps, I tell them at the end of the day, you can just press one button on your computer and you can hit delete. Okay. We can wipe it off the internet. We can delete it. So everything you can think can go wrong can be reversed. All right. Will people hear it? Yeah, they may hear it, but at least you can erase it. You can delete it. You can redo it. So I tell them that like as a fail safe. It's not like, lucky for us, we have a microphone that's pre-recorded. Like we can edit this later, right? In speaking in your space, it's different. You're live, right? So you could totally, keep in mind, like you could totally edit, cut, reverse, or remove whatever you want in podcasting. So there is no fear, right? In terms of like sounding dumb or just, that. So that's the first thing. The second thing I like to tell people when it comes to like we had a client, we had a workshop last week, and one of the questions that came up, which I was surprised, was, will anybody listen to me? That's a big question. Will anyone listen to my podcast? And the answer is, I did an episode on this morning. If you're afraid of that, or if you've got head trash around, like, I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this topic. Well, you can go and stress test that topic on social media. You can put a poll out on your stories and ask, like, what questions do you have around XYZ? What's the biggest pain point you're suffering, when it comes to your marketing? So you can go and find these kind of like, you can validate your idea if you're worried about, is anyone going to like my topic? So, we try to give them all the tools they need when it comes to figuring out if this idea or this is actually going to work before we actually spend money and spend time on making the podcast. And then the second piece to that is just saying, hey, like at the end of the day, you can just we can delete it, you can cut it, you can get rid of it if you don't like it. So
you can totally delete it, y'all. I have done it. It's fine to do as well, right? And you can just, what, if you're a soloist, that is the easiest opportunity to build on your skills. So I started off solo with my podcast at first before I did interviews, but it's a great space to just find your voice. And I love that idea that you don't have to be perfect in the beginning. There's a few podcasters that I follow, and they always talk about like your first 50 to 100 episodes are trash anyway. So it's like, just kind of like lean into the trash, right? You get better with time. Your equipment will get better with time, the people that you work with. So let's talk about getting started. Right? Because everyone thinks that they need $1 million to get started podcasting. They got to go and, sit at the most exclusive studio, probably go to Oprah Studios or something like that. We don't have to do that, right? We're here now having a conversation that will be repurposed into a podcast. So what equipment do folks need to get started?
Yeah, this is the biggest question. And I'm glad you brought it up, Evolve, because, a lot of people, I think you need a $200, $300, $400 mic. Literally had a friend of mine who's a big name in the internet marketing space text me like all this equipment yesterday. He's like, which one should I get? I'm like, get $100 mic, bro. That's all you need for starting out. And the truth of it is, we'll go through it. So, I've used the same mic. We'll tackle the mic first because that's the biggest question most people have. I've used the same mic for my entire podcasting career, since 2016, and it's always been the ATR 2100X. So you guys can go Google that or go to Amazon, and it's a black mic like this one right here. It's a new version of this one, ATR 2100X. You don't need a mic, but I'd recommend you get this one. It's $100 investment. That mic will last you 3, 4, 5 years. So not a bad lifespan for a mic. The second thing you'll need is a hosting account. So Evolve, because like podcasting, it's one of those things you don't really know until you get in it. Like, oh, I need to pay for this. So a hosting account is basically, you can go to Anchor if you want. If you want to step it up a little bit, Captivate.fm has a lot of really good tools for $19 a month. And you can even get it cheaper for that if you pay for the whole entire year up front. So really good place to go. We have almost all of our clients over there who are running a lot of traffic through their podcasts, and it's a really good company. So you need a mic, ATR 2100X. You need Captivate to host your files. And you need Zoom accounts. A lot of people ask like what kind of equipment. Like we're using StreamYard right now. You can use that, or you can use some like Zoom to record your content. Especially if you're doing video. I don't know, Evolve, do you have a lot of people who do video or want to do video when it comes to
Yeah,
podcasts?
Definitely. Yeah. So I think it's a mixture of both, right? I enjoy doing it without video at this point with Boy Meets Wellness, but we're moving into something different with you, right? And I think that it's great because you could repurpose it. I didn't do video before because a lot of my topics were around wellness and well-being, and I wanted people to feel like they didn't have to get dressed up, like they actually could be, potentially being well and relaxing themselves while they were on Zoom. So we do it on Zoom as well, just like you, but we just have people not show themselves on camera if they don't want to.
Got it. Okay. It's funny. I did audio for a while. Then I switched to video because I'm like, video's the new hot thing. And now I find myself going back to audio only. I'm like, you know what? Like, Evolve, when I got into this, I sucked at writing, I sucked at video, and I was good at audio. That's why I did podcasting. And the funny thing is, I found myself going back to that and actually, realizing that I'm way better. So
you're way better at the
way
actual
better.
Audio. Yeah, that's what I feel for myself as well. But I do, I think it's great to have for repurposing, and I love this idea of doing something live. Like being here with you right now is very cool. But there is something very intimate about audio, right? Yeah. And a sense of vulnerability that I think that some people actually share, right? When they are only on audio, that they don't have to, like, because if I've seen you, some of the conversation that I've had on my podcast probably wouldn't happen. People might even cry, right? Like someone going into that much vulnerability, but there's some protection about not being seen. So they need the mic, they need the hosting. Of course, they need that. They need a show plan, right? Or can they just ramble? I got a friend that has a show called Something Rambles. I mean, I think that's an option too.
Yeah. It's funny. So the thing is, I've learned like there's prolific ramblers. There's people who, if you let them rant, they're going to make more money, and the more money, the more they talk, the more they ramble. All right. You know what I mean? So it's a direct correlation between talking and how much money they make. For most people, that's not the case. We have a method that helps people kind of put together the show structure, and we'll go through that. We can go through that method if you want, but most people can't rant, rumble, or rant and like really make it really successful. So for most people, there needs to be some kind of structure of like way you put the show together, and then like in terms of like hard things you need, we talked about like the mic, the hosting account, Zoom to record. That's really it. For marketing and strategy, there's definitely a ton more. But I'd love to just kind of dive into like I think the episode structure piece. I think it's a huge part that like a lot of people get tripped up on.
Please do. Please drop these. You are just giving us all this knowledge. I want folks to know that they are getting it today, right? This is an exclusive. This is really an exclusive. So please give us some show structure. And also when you're done giving that to us, is there any way that people can have more space with you? Because I know you got a free group where you probably drop in more of these dimes, right? Where people can kind of check it out as well. Yeah.
Good question. Glad you asked about that. Yes, we're closing that group, but I'll give you another space to check out, to connect with me. Definitely for everybody else who's interested. So the method, and this is something that like we started doing this a couple of months ago because I realized that like it's not as easy as I thought it was. I have a really bad habit of thinking things are easy when they're hard for most people, which I think is what's called the expert's curse, right? You think it's easy. It's like not for everyone else, just you. So to jump into the podcast structure, I like to structure it like a kind of like a live. And I learned this and kind of refined this idea from Justin Demers. So I got to give credit where credit's due. But it starts with hook, intro, context, call to action, outro. And I'll kind of break those down. So hook, what you're going to say in the first 10 to 15 seconds to actually hook them in and get people interested. Intro is kind of a two-part. So intro is like where you're giving context about the show, what they're about to hear, right? And also a small call to action. So I like to give people a call to action of like, where they should go if they don't reach the end of this episode. Because if we wait to kind of plug whatever we want to plug at the end of the episode, it's kind of bad because we're going to leave a lot of people out. A lot of people are going to get halfway through this, have to get out of their car, go to their job, go do whatever they have to do, and they're not going to listen to the entire podcast. So we've got the hook, what we're going to say to really get them hooked in it and invested in the show, the first 10 to 15 seconds. We've got the intro, which is again, giving context about what they're going to listen to, and then also a small call to action. Then third part, you've got the context of the episode, right? The context of the episode is like what the actual meat of the episode, what you're going to teach them, show them, the story you're going to tell them, any and all of that, right? After that, in the outro, and the outro is kind of, you can kind of play with this, right? So I'll give you some options here. So outro, it can be pre-recorded. You can have a pre-recorded outro piece that's just kind of a boilerplate. Hey, thanks for listening. If you have any questions about, what we learned today, feel free to go to xyz.com. Or you can kind of do an outro where it is live and you're telling them where to go, but also telling them, hey, here is the summary. Here's like a recap of what we just covered so that they can really condense it down and take away the information that you just taught them. So again, you got the hook at the top, the intro, the context, and the and the outro. I think I'm missing one more. So those are kind of the four main pieces of an episode. And depending on like your show and if you have a guest or a co-host or you're doing a panel, that's going to change a little bit. But for the most part, those are kind of the four key pieces. If you wanted to put a podcast together, that's going to really help captivate people. And also if you have an offer at the end, or if you're looking to get more speaking engagements, it's going to allow you to make those small calls to action as well.
Thank you for breaking that down. I learned so much. I had to go over here and take my notes, right? Because I'm trying to make my show better as well, Louise. That was a great aspect to really think about, that people don't always finish the episode, right? Like people getting out of their car, they might be taking their kid on a walk, right? And they get back home. So what are some ways that we consistently remind them of the way that we're serving them and lead them back to whatever offer that we may have? We had one question actually that came in the comments, and it says, is recording the podcast and utilizing the video footage a good strategy for capturing a larger audience?
Great question. Great question. So, it's fun. I've seen people do just audio and have a great success. Also seen people do audio and video to have great success. So it's more so about what you're saying and what's like with the content itself, as opposed to whether it's audio, video, or audio only. To answer your question, yes, it is. However, keep in mind, if you're doing audio and video, there's a lot more work to, taking the audio, repurposing it, turning it into a YouTube video or whatever it is you want to do. So like my team, we still do it for a lot of clients, and we still do it sometimes for my own shows when I'm doing video. But it is a lot more work. So yes, but just be prepared to, to do the work to make sure it actually gets out there.
I always say that, it's really important to think about how you're going to market it, right? Like, I think that a lot of content creators get stuck on the side of creating, but they don't think about the process of how they're going to deliver it to the people. So I'm big on start with one side of it. You can always record it, right? We're doing this today. And let's say we wanted to repurpose this on a YouTube channel a year from now. It wouldn't do bad, right? Because it's great. It's amazing content. Louise is giving us and dropping us all the knowledge. Are getting some exclusives here, right? So it's going to do great no matter when we drop it, but we want to make sure that we're intentional about it and that we have, right, the proper structure set up, which means we might have to hire some people, y'all. So this is why we are speaking for profit. We're constantly bringing cash flow into our businesses so that we can anchor larger marketing efforts that might cost us more money, but we don't want to stress ourselves out. So we don't need to learn how to be a YouTube editor and do all of that. We need to hire people to do that, right? So also think about how much is that going to cost to be able to keep that up and to be, I guess you could say, consistent, right, Louise? Because that's super important when it comes to podcasting. I don't think that folks understand that. If you're going to say you do a show weekly, you got to do it weekly. If it's daily, it's got to be daily because you want your audience to know that you're going to show up for them. So what are ways that you stay consistent, right? Because I know you're doing a lot. You're educating folks, you're coaching folks. I went on your profile and snuck. I see you have an amazing partner. So you're doing a lot of things, right? Like you're moving through the world. How do you stay consistent with podcasting?
That's a great question. First thing I'll say, I love podcasting. So like I got up this morning and recorded 3 episodes because that was supposed to be a yesterday job. I try to batch produce my content. So every Tuesday I have a content day. Doesn't always work out like that. That's real life. But every Tuesday is the day where I clear my calendar for the most part and I go to work on the episodes. I love, kind of like you, Evolve, I love solo episodes, like interviews too. Interviews are fun, but I find solos are my jam and where I get to nerd out. So in terms of staying consistent, I look at the calendar of I batch my content kind of according to what I'm focused on that quarter or that month. So we just finished a workshop. So all of our previous content was all about the workshop and the pain points we're solving there. This next season for me, this next kind of how I'm looking at next month to 6 weeks, so to speak, is all about kind of educating people on how to launch a podcast profitably and fast. So all the content is going to be geared around that. So in terms of tips, you guys have probably heard it before, right? Batch produce your content. What that means is dedicate one day or one afternoon per week to creating content. Okay. In terms of staying consistent, the way I think of it helps me a lot. And I can actually I'll drop you guys an example of my production sheet. That way you guys can see I have it on a spreadsheet and how I go about creating that content. And for me, it's better than using a project management tool or something else because it can get a little too messy and I just want simplicity. Gosh, where was I going with that thought? I had another thought there that I wanted to end off on, but it'll come back to me. All good.
We were speaking about consistency, if that helps you to draw it back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So one last point. Thank you, Evolve. One last point was really around season. So if you're not, because podcasting can be a daunting thing. Like I'm going to sign up to doing an episode a day or a week for the rest of the year. That's a big commitment, right? So some people we've seen, some clients we've had, they think about it in seasons. So, okay, I just got to think about season 1 and you can pick a theme to match that season. Maybe it's all about money mindset. Maybe it's all about, how to book your first speaking gig. And we do a series on that. And then we go how to charge, how to book your first paid speaking gig. We do a season on that. So you can create these content, these seasons to help you focus in on the content. And for me, that's been huge. And thinking of my podcast in seasons, almost I'm a huge fan of The Office. So I think of season 1, season 2, season 3, almost like a TV show.
I love The Office as well. One of my joys. Yeah, you know what? I started off doing that, Louise, because someone gave me that advice. I started off with seasons and then we went into weekly because it was really hard, y'all. In the beginning, it's really hard. You're getting used to it. You're getting used to your voice. I didn't have an editor. I didn't have anything together. So now I have more of a process, but I appreciate that you telling people the way that they can do it in a sustainable way, right? And that's what we're really big at Speaking for Profit. We're all about building a profitable and sustainable speaking business. I don't want people having money and be burnt out and not be able able to enjoy it. So I love that you brought in that aspect of sustainability. I do know that you have other places to be because you are jamming and you're doing it in the world. So I would love to just ask you one more question about manifestation, right? Like, what are we doing in the next 5 years? Where will we see you in the next 5 years?
Great question, Evolve. Funny quick backstory. I got into real estate when I was in college. I spent probably like near 10 grand and I failed. And you know what's funny? Like, I got into it, I loved it, but I couldn't sustain it. And I wasn't successful with it. I didn't have the mindset at that time as a 20-year-old kid to sustain and push through the adversity. But I always knew I'm coming back to it. So for me, I'll probably be investing in real estate and maybe still running an agency and helping people with podcasting. But I want to start to diversify and get a little bit of offline, because getting offline is sometimes really nice. Not having to be in the spotlight,
right?
Or in creating content,
right? And your money is making money for you within real estate. It's a great space to be. I have a daily affirmation that I say, and I say, I'm a millionaire real estate investor investing in properties all around the country, right? It's an affirmation that I say to myself every day. So you are within a aligned company, and I hope that we're able to share within success. I might be like, Louise, come on down to my property in Mexico. Come on, it's waterfront. Come and hang out with me. I can see us now. We are manifesting the dream together. You
know it. I love it.
So how can folks support your work? Where can they find you? I know you're going to give us that tip sheet, so we'll be sure to put that into the comments, right? And I'll put it into the show notes for folks who are listening to Boy Meets Wellness. But what are ways that folks can connect with you, support your work, and continue to elevate your journey?
I think the best place, so the Facebook group, we'll tackle that. The Facebook group I'm closing down.
Oh, no.
I know. Yeah. It's a hard decision. And the fact of the matter is, I was like, I have 2 Facebook groups, one for my paid customers and clients, the other one that's free. And I'm like, I want to support the people who support me. So I'm going to put all my eggs in that basket. My personal profile is still going to have a ton of content. So we're just literally going to put everything that was going in our Facebook group is going to go on our personal profile. So if you guys are friends with me there, who are listening to this on the Facebook side, just check me out there, or just add me as a friend, and we'll connect. In terms of everything else, so podcastdomination.co we just built a ton of articles and blogs around equipment. So if you're looking for equipment or anything like that, we'll make sure I'll give those the links. You guys the links, you have the direct go to there. And it's all the stuff that I support, I trust, and the products that I recommend to my clients. So that's the best place to go. Personal profile or podcastdomination.co just to connect. So I'm Ryan Diaz, and I was born obviously incredible.
Thanks for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boy Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible.